In this demo, I want to show you how, where, and why you might want to implement iEditable for transactional changes on entities that you're data binding to. Starting point for this one is the ending point of previous demos in the module. And what we're going to be focusing on here is the order objects. If we go ahead and run the app, the first thing to notice is that the data grid in WPF already has support for backing out changes or rolling back changes as you edit an object. As soon as you put a row into edit mode, like I've just done by clicking into a cell, and start modifying the values there, as long as my focus stays on that row, I can hit escape and you can see it backed out the changes. So really, while a row is in edit mode, it's creating a temporary object in memory and modifying the values on that. Now there's a data binding update mode we'll get to in a later module where it might be pushing those changes as you tab out of the field. So I could make this change, tab out of the field, and you can get it to write it to the underlying object immediately. But by default, it's not doing that. And if we hit escape, then it backs those things out. Now, whether you support the immediate update mode or not, you might want to have your object notified because it might need to refresh its values from the database, for example, instead of just directly from memory. So that's one place where iEditable comes in. The other would be if we were editing our order down at the bottom and wanted to back out changes here when we click cancel. Then one way to go about it would be to support iEditable on that order object. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first off, if we're data binding to these order entities, as we covered in a previous demo, we really should be supporting iNotify property change on this object. So the first change I'm going to make is to do that. So you can see I've added the iNotify property change interface and the corresponding event onto my order object. I've expanded all the properties to have backing member variables and to raise the property changed event when those change. So that's the starting point, is make it a good object for data binding. Second part is to implement the iEditable interface. So I declare that I want to implement that interface, and I can stub out the implementation using Visual Studio. So you can see that the interface defines three methods: begin edit, cancel edit, and end edit. And the idea here is that when you go into an edit mode, such as in the data grid row, it can call the begin edit method. If the user escapes and cancels those changes, it can call cancel edit. And if they complete the changes normally, then it will call end edit. In the case of the data grid, that would happen when the row focus changes to a different row. So what do we really need to do in these methods? Well, let me add some implementation. And you can see what I'm doing here is I've got a temp values object that's declared as a member variable on the class that is an order itself. So it's just a place to stash the temporary values for each of our properties. And you can see I new up an order object when we go into the begin edit mode, stash off all the values of my properties into the properties of that temporary object. Then if cancel edit is called, we just restore the property values to those original values. And if end edit is called, we throw away our temporary values because they're no longer needed. So just a simple, straightforward brute force kind of approach to implementing an editable object. With that in place, I can set some breakpoints here and go ahead and run. And now we'll see as I click into a cell, begin edit is called. So we have a chance to stash off our values and we can go ahead and start editing that. As you can see, as I tab off the fields, it's holding onto those values. I can change this to 3, maybe this to 99. And as long as I don't tab out, which will take me to the next row, I can hit escape, and now our cancel edit is being called. So it just gives your code a chance to be involved in that edit cancel process and to do whatever's necessary to restore the state of your object on cancel. Now, what if we wanted to leverage this for our entry form down below for creating a new order for when the cancel button is hit? If we wanted to back out the changes to the new order object that's being held in the window. To do that, we'd want to go to the place where the new order is initiated and that editing can begin. So in our case, that's as soon as the customer is selected, we could call begin edit on the new order object. Then when the add button is pressed, that's basically the success case, we would call end edit. And then in cancel, naturally, we would call cancel edit. With those changes in place, we can run. We could go down here and start editing our object. And then if I click the cancel button, watch the fields revert back to their defaults. So that's all there is to IEditable object. Implement the interface, define the begin, cancel, and end edit methods, stashing off the values somewhere appropriate, and being able to restore those values on cancel edit. And then if you have explicit start and end processes for editing in forms, you can call begin edit and then call end edit at the appropriate point, or cancel if you need to back out changes.